Hey, folks, this is Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson. Today's episode of Tennessee Today, I had the opportunity, pleasure, honor of talking with the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Tennessee, Randy McNally. Now, this is kind of a personal conversation for me because Randy and I are really good friends. We've known each other ever since I've been in the legislature, and we actually live together when we're in Nashville. We talk about his 48 years of legislative service to the state of Tennessee. The last 10 years, he's been the Lieutenant Governor, Speaker of the Senate. We talk about a few stories over his past. We talk about some of the monumental things that have happened during his time in office. And then we just talk about how the legislature functions. I think it's a really informative and interesting episode. I hope you'll tune in. Do you ever wonder what's really going on in government, locally, in the state of Tennessee, and across the country? I'm Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson, and on Tennessee Today, we dive into the issues that shape our communities, from local policy to national debates. Each episode, I break down key topics and issues, share my perspective from over 20 years in the Tennessee legislature, and talk with guests about the decisions that impact your daily life. I hope you enjoy these honest conversations and that they help you stay informed and engaged. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Tennessee Today wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Lieutenant Governor McNally, welcome to the
Randy's
podcast.
Fine.
Randy, okay, Randy, I'll call you that if you're comfortable with that. I certainly am. So what? People may not know. People don't know much about state government. And one of the things we try to do on this podcast is talk about things locally as well as in the state. We don't spend a lot of time on the federal stuff. Sometimes we get into it just because you have to. But for the most part, we talk about state government. So before we get into talking about all the things that you do as Lieutenant Governor, tell the audience a little bit what you do, what your story is, how you came to the Senate or started in the House, how that all began for you.
Yeah, I started in 1978. It was a fairly close race. In the primary, I got like 2,000 votes, and my opponent got 5,000 on the Democrat side. But then in the general, we did a lot of door knocking and listening to people, and I ended up with 8,000, and he ended up with 5,000 again. So,
yeah. So you and I share something in that we both come out of the healthcare industry.
Right.
I'm a physical therapist. You're a pharmacist. You went to the University of Tennessee, Memphis, for your pharmacy training. Where did you do your undergraduate?
University of Memphis. Back then it was Memphis State.
I don't think I knew that you went to Memphis State. So you were a Memphis State Tiger back then. Yeah. So we're both
I was a pre-med student until I had too good a time in Memphis.
Yeah, I understand that. So what is it? And we have several other members in the legislature that are held. We got Farrell Hale, who's a pharmacist. We've got Shane Reeves, who's a pharmacist. We've got Joey Hensley, who's a physician. We've got Richard Briggs, who is a physician. For you, what was it? You're practicing as a pharmacist. What drew you into the political world? I mean, we're both human scientists. What pulled you into the political world?
Side.
Yeah,
I'd always had an interest in history and civics, and participated in college and
were you in like the college Republicans and stuff like that?
Actually, I was in the college Democrats for a year.
Okay, we don't talk about that on this show. That's not what we're supposed to say here. Let me ask you again. So you were in the college Republicans at Memphis State? Huh?
It was only to get a fellow fraternity member elected.
Okay.
So that was the only meeting I attended.
Okay.
But I got involved in Governor Dunn's campaign when I was in Memphis. I called him on the phone. We had a real good conversation. He found out I was going back to Anderson County, and he gave me some people to get in contact with. And so I did, and really enjoyed working on that campaign. And he was elected that year, and
Because you worked on his campaign.
no,
Well, that's
that was kind of a
listen. This is our show,
yeah.
and if it's because you were on his campaign, then it's because you were on his campaign.
But and then I had a choice when, let's see, it was in '78. I had a choice whether to continue with working with Lamar's campaign or working on my own, or Howard Baker was also up that year. So,
Yeah. So I think a lot of people might not know, just to help inform people. So Winfield Dunn was elected in '72. Is that right? Yeah, '72. He was the first Republican governor in.
Since Reconstruction.
Yeah, I mean it was, and he was a dentist in West Tennessee. So again, you've got this healthcare connection,
Right.
And then, last week, or last episode, I guess I should say, we had Lamar Alexander was actually on, and we talked a lot about his development and how he came along, and we talked about his first campaign against Ray Blanton, which he lost, and then of course Lamar. So you had Winfield Dunn, then Ray Blanton, then Lamar Alexander,
right?
Yeah, and Lamar would have been in that '78
right
campaign where you ran for the House,
and I served for just a few months under Blanton.
So this episode's going to come after the Lamar episode. I want to tie these two together because you have one of the things that I want people to realize is you have just a vast knowledge of the Tennessee state legislature, both the House and Senate side, because you've served in the minority, you've served in the majority, you've served with governors since Ray Blanton. But you had the opportunity to serve with Lamar, who he wanted me to call him Lamar too.
Yeah.
So you served with Lamar, and he was a Republican working with a democratically controlled legislature. What was that like?
Well, he was able to outflank them, and what he'd do is he'd go to the public with his things like Better Schools program and other programs that he initiated, and he was very successful at that. He had a real good commissioner of finance, Louis Donaldson, and at that time, let's see, Doug Henry was chairman of Senate Finance, and Bragg was chairman of House Finance, and they were both fairly conservative. So that helped him, and a lot of the West Tennessee people were sort of on the conservative bent.
Yeah. So when you first get elected in 1978, what committees did you get assigned to?
I had wanted to do finance, but
of course. Which, for the people who don't know, you ended up being the finance chair of the Senate before you became lieutenant governor, and we served together on that committee. Usually, you don't get the best committees when you first start.
I was on education and environment, and those were like second and third choices that I had.
Well, with Lamar's agenda, being on education probably put you right in the middle of it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah. So how long were you in the House?
For 4 terms.
So 8 years.
8 years.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you what led to your transition over to the Senate?
Well, it started back in February of '86. I had found out some things that were not going around, that were taking place in the legislature that I thought were illegal and criminal, and went to the FBI and TBI. And so I knew that remaining in the House was probably not a good thing for my future. I would probably end up in the janitor's closet or something like that when it came out. And so I was thinking about either leaving or and doing something else. But then the senator from our area, from Anderson County, came to me and said that he had decided not to run. And so I said, well, I'll do that. If I win, I win. If I don't, I don't.
Yeah. So the affair you're referring to is the Rocky Top affair.
Rocky Top investigation.
Not to spend a lot of time on that, but there was legislators and others who were getting kickbacks and stuff for different kind of gambling kind of things, right? Yeah. And the FBI became a federal issue, and the FBI came in.
It was a state federal TBI FBI investigation.
Yeah. And a number of people made their way to prison after that.
About 70.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a big, and you're kind of known. One of the things that I know when I came to the legislature, particularly in the Senate, one of the things that you were known for, and we'll talk about this later, but you were known for, your level of integrity was pretty much impeccable, and some of that dates back to the fact that you took a stand during the Rocky Top investigation that others might not have taken. Yeah. So, and let's see, Lamar wasn't governor at the time? Was McWhorter governor? Okay.
No. Let's see. Yeah, Ned
Ray
was
McWhorter was governor. Yeah. We had when we were talking to Lamar about the whole where he got sworn in early, and I think people call it the coup.
Yeah.
All these people that you and I talk about were all part of that story. Ned Ray was there.
Wilder,
Bill
Leach,
all of these guys that you obviously served with. Some of them, none of them that I really served. Well, I served with Wilder for a moment. So you move over to the Senate. What was your committee? So after going through all the investigation stuff, what did your committee assignment end up being in this? Again, we're in the minority. We're in the minority,
right?
But now there are 33 members in the Senate. How many Republicans were there your first year? Do you remember?
12.
It's 12. So yeah.
But at that time, the Democratic senators decided to remove Wilder, and so.
Wilder has been the long-serving Speaker of the Senate, Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah, like close to 40 years, I think, eventually.
Yeah.
But he went to Ben Atchley and Carl Culla, the two Republican leaders, and said, well, I'm not going to be Speaker anymore. The Democrats caucus has said that they want to elect another Speaker, and one of them said, well, we've got 12 votes that say you'll be Speaker, and he did the math. He only needed 5 more, or 4 more, and his self would make the 5th one to get the 17. So for a while, it was just 17-16 on all the votes. But
and people may not know, Wilder was a Democrat.
Yeah. And so he gave the Republicans some good chairmanships and also some good placements on committees. So I, along with Lou Patton, was placed on finance. And then the other committee I served on, was environment and that was chaired by Ronnie Greer, who's now a federal judge. He was a Republican. And those two were pretty good assignments.
Yeah. So I arrived in the House in 2004, which would be the 2005 legislative session,
right.
and in the Senate in 2006, and which would be the 2007 legislative session. And that was the first year that we really got the majority, right? Yeah. So that must have been quite an experience for you. I mean, we elected Ron Ramsey Speaker. And you and Ron were close.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going into that was Senator Corita, who was a Democrat that voted for Ron, and myself and Ron and his wife were the only people that knew about what was happening on that day.
Yeah. So you had Wilder running against Ramsey,
right?
Democrat versus Republican. And I think was it 1815? Was that the split of the legislature? 18 Republicans, 15 Democrats. But you had a guy, Senator Williams, who everybody figured aligned with Wilder, and you guys figured out that Ramsey was going to need one Democrat to vote for him in order to win. And y'all worked on that. Nobody knew. And then when the vote started, and of course the vote goes alphabetically.
Right.
And when they got to Corita and she said Ramsey, of course, it was my first day to be in the Senate. You could hear the oxygen suck out of the room because at that point, everybody knew we were about to have a change in leadership after 40 or so years of the same person sitting in the dais. So that was a really historical moment. It was also the first moment where, since Reconstruction, the Republicans had a true majority in the Senate.
Right.
And of course, once Williams realized that he was the last one to vote, he went ahead and voted because he could see he voted for Ron because he knew that was going to happen. So Ron made you finance chair at that time, and of course that also was a huge change. I think people who have moved to Tennessee in the past 15 or 20 years think that we've always kind of been this way, right? That we've always been this deeply Republican, deep red state. And you and I know that's just not
true.
How it's been. That's all been really earned with a lot of hard work, primarily from path builders like you and Ron and others before you. And yet people come in and they say, well, you're not conservative enough or you're not red enough. And you're like, hey, you have no idea what it took to get us to where we are, right? And that change in 2007 was really not only did we replace the speaker for the first time in 40 years, but also Doug Henry had been finance chair of the Senate for, I don't know, most of those years.
Yeah, I think just about all of them. I believe.
So roughly 40 years. So we had a new finance chair, which was you, of course, and of course Senator Henry was vice chair, and then ultimately chairman emeritus, because he was as much like us as he was anything. And I got placed on that committee, which was great for me because I got to sit. Well, I had to sit next to Burchett, Senator Tim Burchett, now House Representative Tim Burchett, most of the time, which kept things going, so to speak.
It did.
But that's where I learned, just like you learned from Senator Henry, that I learned from you.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you found out you were going to be chairman of finance for the first time?
Well,
did it intimidate you at all, or did you think, "Oh my goodness"?
Yeah, it was a big move. I'd been vice chairman and worked very closely with the chairman, and but it was you could feel the weight on your shoulders when that happened, and we had lost our 3 AAA credit ratings from 3 different rating agencies, and that was in 2002, I believe. And we kept trying over the years to get that back, and eventually did.
Yeah, you did, and it's been something that we have hung our hat on, ever since. People don't really understand the structure of the legislature. So just real quick, we've got 99 members that are in the House, 33 members that are in the Senate. I've had Cameron Sexton on the show. He's the Speaker of the House. You're the Speaker, but by virtue of being Speaker of the Senate, you are Lieutenant Governor. And you're elected, as we talked about with Wilder, both speakers are elected by the body. It's an internal vote with just the members that vote for it.
Right.
So anybody that's named the speaker has earned the respect of his or her colleagues. I mean, it's a really big deal. But then within that structure, we have committees that do the work for the Senate and committees that do work for the House. But the speaker is responsible for assigning those people to that committee.
And the officers of that committee, too.
And the officers of the committee, right? The vice chairman, the secretary, those kind of things. What process do you go through when you're doing that? And make this really good because you've been kind enough to make me Speaker of Finance. So if you need me to help you with some of the reasons you would make people chairman. No, what goes through the process of determining chairman?
Well, one, you want somebody that's a leader. You want somebody that has knowledge of that committee's business, and you also have to do some balancing as far as the membership on the committees. You don't want everybody from East Tennessee or everybody from West Tennessee. You want to kind of, in the 9-member committees, you want to kind of even it out. And then in finance, which has 11, you try to make that even also. But in of course, when the Democrats were in charge, all their officers were Democrat, and so we under our system, all the officers are Republican.
Yeah. And again, we've maintained our triple A rating. Tennessee has become just a state that people want to come to. So obviously, I would argue a lot of what we've been doing has been incredibly successful. Now, you are, again, people that watch this or listen to this don't necessarily understand how the legislature works. You're a really strong believer in the committee system.
Right.
That when legislation is introduced, that it needs to be worked out
in the committee.
So tell the listeners a little bit about how you see your leadership style under those kind of conditions.
Well, I like to appoint good people to those positions, and people that I can work with, and people that are conservative and of course Republican, and that can lead that committee in the direction we need it to go. And I usually just leave it all up to them, and I don't have to get involved in some of the, minor tapping people on the shoulder and saying, I need your vote on this one, or that type of thing.
Yeah. No, I have told people that that my view of your leadership style has been that you have been very, and I think some of this has to do with your experience over the years in the legislature, that actually your influence has increased because you give up power. You give power to your committee and your committee chairman to make decisions. You respect the decisions that they make, and by giving away power, you actually have enhanced your standing with the members. Because, it's people who get elected and people who serve on committees, people who are chairman of committees, they want to be a part of the decision-making process, right? And when one person, which is kind of one of the flaws in our federal system, where you have one or two people that are making all the decisions, you end up with the sort of the stalemate that we have in Congress. Whereas in the legislature, because you have been willing to give up power, members want to do things to help you be successful.
Mm-hmm. And the another important thing is, and I try to tell all the members this, is it's really important to listen to people and to ask questions where you're eliciting information from them, and in doing so, you help move things along.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about from your experience in the legislature. As you have served in the legislature longer and longer and longer, do you listen more and talk less?
I try to.
Well,
I try to. I think as when I'm presiding over the Senate, I'm like a referee, and I don't really take sides at that point. And if a Democrat raises their hand to speak, I recognize them and recognize people in the order. Try to recognize people in the order that they raise their hands. That's hard to do when you're kind of running the show and looking over.
Yeah. But I think it is true that when you reach the level of leadership that you're currently in, correct me if I'm wrong, what you say has a lot more impact than if you're a first-year freshman member. And so
definitely.
because what you say has so much impact, you're much more careful about what you say.
Right.
Because people are always trying to, well, what's he mean? What's he trying to say? And you having lived with you now and served with you now, you can be a cryptic communicator at times, and
Oh.
people figure out how to try to figure out how to read you. But it's really true. Like governors have to be careful about what they say.
What they say, right.
And speakers have to be careful about what they say. And you kind of get into, I'm going to listen a lot more than I'm going to say, because if I say anything, it's going to take the membership this way or take the public that way. And
Right.
that can create more problems than it solves.
It can. It can.
So again, talked about that, the committee structure, your leadership style. But I mean, for the public, exactly what does the lieutenant governor do? Because, in a lot of states, the lieutenant governor is elected like the governor is elected.
Right.
Matter of fact, I suppose in most states that's how it works. Tennessee, it's kind of different. What role, when you're in the Senate and you are guiding the Senate, you're actually serving as the Speaker of the Senate at that point.
Yeah.
Right? So when we're in session and you're, as you term it, refereeing, you're really the Speaker of the Senate at that point.
Right.
And you're really good about, if people watch us, you're really good about letting other people come up and preside over the Senate. Now, if people watch the United States Congress, the United States Senate, they do that all the time too. They bring different people in to kind of learn. I guess it helps learn with the process. It also gives people an opportunity to participate really actively in the process. And you've been really good about that with members. But when you're not doing that job, what does the lieutenant governor do? What does that mean to people?
Well, as far as the lieutenant governor's office and everything, actually nothing, because unless something happens to the governor,
right,
I'm not a part of the administration. I'm strictly a part of the legislative branch of the government.
Let's drill down on that just a second, because I think that's a really important point that people who may not be into this kind of stuff haven't thought about, or wouldn't have never thought about. The lieutenant governor in Tennessee is actually a member of the legislative branch,
right?
Not the executive branch.
Exactly.
Which is sort of contrary to the system of government that we have. Whereas in other states, the lieutenant governor would be a member of the executive branch and would ascend to be governor.
Right.
They wouldn't go to the legislative branch. So lieutenant governor is, to some degree, a ceremonial title only exercised if something happens to the governor.
Exactly. It was the legislature did it in 1951. And I'm not exactly sure of their reasons, but the Speaker of the Senate seconded should something happen to the governor, so they
just gave it the title.
Gave him the title,
yeah.
And in some states, there's only one other state, West Virginia, that has that. And in some states, the Secretary of State is number 2, but he, is usually part of the administration at that point.
Yeah. So you're in what, your 40th year, 38th year? How long have you been in the legislature?
Total 48.
How has the legislature changed in that time, particularly the Senate, where you spent most of your time?
Yeah. It was heavily dominated originally when I came there by West Tennessee Democrats, who were not as conservative as Republicans, but more conservative than the urban Democrats, and they'd usually have little fights between them. But that's probably the biggest change. The other thing is we no longer kind of play around for the first few months and then go and end sometime. Well, sometimes it's been July or August.
Right. For people who may not understand what that means, we have a limited amount of time that we're in session. So we go in
Yeah.
the second Tuesday of January. Constitution requires that. It doesn't tell us when we have to end.
Right.
It does tell us that you've only got 90 days over the course of 2 years
For pay.
to do your work that you get paid for. You can be here longer.
Oh, yeah.
But you're only going to get
Stay
paid
as long as you want.
Yeah, you're going to get paid for that. And when I first was elected, and during most of your time in the minority, session went at least until June.
Right.
And you've had a number of times when y'all went into August.
Right.
But now, I think what you're referencing is now one of the biggest changes is we come in and almost immediately start working, and we're finishing now in late April, early May. Do you think the members are different today than they were when you were first?
Much more professional, and it's a better mix of people, I think. Just about everybody when I first came in was either an attorney or retired.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, when we really started work with Republicans, which you've been involved, you've been in the battle for a long time. Republicans were trying to gain the majority. One of the things that we tried to do was to expand the type and style of people that were in the legislature, right? I mean, that was kind of part of the strategy, right? Yeah. And I think and I agree with you. I think it's made a huge difference, and I think members are much more prepared. Of course, we have access to information and access to tools now that y'all didn't have access to, right?
It was all on paper.
Yeah, and how did you? This is a curious question. When you first started in '78, we had offices. There was the offices in the plaza and in the legislative War Memorial Building, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because there was a period of time where people's desks on the Senate floor, that was kind of their office,
was it.
right?
Yeah, that was it.
And another interesting thing that I think people would find fascinating is that people smoked.
Right. Yeah.
Both in committee and on the floor.
And before I came, they had spittoons.
Yeah,
But,
which seems
cigars and in committee and in meetings in their offices. Yeah, and that didn't end, I think, until probably about '88, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure it was controversial because
It was.
because those guys. But when I'm in meetings now or I'm sitting on the floor, I'm like, I can't imagine
What was
10 people smoking in here, right?
Yeah.
But that's the way it was. So you got such a long tenure. Who are some of your favorite characters that you've served with?
Oh, there was
Not
a
one
lot
more
of,
than another, but just some of the characters.
Well, Tim Burchett, for example, when we first started using cell phones a lot, they weren't the big box type. They were little flip phones. And my grandkids had helped me set it up, and they thought it'd be fun, put in a ringtone as a dog bark. And so I got in committee, and, you're supposed to have your cell phones off, which I couldn't figure out how to do that anyway. But I had it in my pocket, and all of a sudden this dog starts barking, and I'm giving everybody the stink eye on either side and realize it's myself. So I start fumbling around trying to find my cell phone. And by the time it stopped, I had found it. But Burchett realized the dilemma I was in, and so at unopportune times he'd call me. I'd go through the same exercise of trying to figure out which pocket my cell phone was in.
Now, what people may not realize is that when Ron Ramsey was speaker, you, me, and Burchett, we all sat on the back row with each other back there.
Yeah.
So you and I both had to deal with
Tim
Burchett's antics, which can be quite a distraction. We don't do that. We don't do much of that anymore, do we? Do you think now y'all weren't televised back then, right?
Right.
And you certainly didn't have social media. So, to some degree, people took that kind of ribbing as just kind of part of the
part of the festivities.
part of the game,
Yeah.
right? Now people get offended by it
Yeah.
or angry about it. And so it's really, I mean, you referred to the legislature. You said, members have gotten more professional.
Right.
But some of that's just because of the kind of the environment we now have to legislate in, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So having fun with people is not as easy to do. Even though we still try to do some things, it's not.
A few things.
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult. We're kind of getting towards the end here. I do want to ask you a couple of things, though, before we kind of close out. And this is kind of a hard question, but in your time, what are the 2 or 3 things, or even 1 or 2 things, that were kind of monumental events that occurred or pieces of legislation? Is there anything that you go, oh, man, when that happened, I was like, oh, my gosh, this is amazing?
Probably the 2 big things were the being able to get back our credit rating to 3 AAAs in the 3 major credit rating agencies. The other would have been Rocky Top. When I met with the FBI and TBI, I thought it'd be a fairly, it wouldn't be very long, that type of thing. But as it progressed through different stages, it did take a while, and it started in February '86, and I think my part kind of ended in 90 or 91, and there were times in which I was wearing a wire, and it was I kind of got used to it after a while. Fortunately, I found out that the FBI and TBI were kind of aware of things before they happened, and they also were very protective of me during the whole event, which was very helpful for our family.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got 48 years that you've invested in the legislature. Did you ever think about running for the federal legislature? I'm a huge fan of state government. Obviously, that's what we talk about on this show. Did you ever?
No,
okay.
No, not at all.
Because
I really enjoy the smaller group and working with a smaller group and being able to accomplish things in that atmosphere. And I thought very, very briefly about running for governor, and I dismissed that real quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a lot. I mean, we've both had friends who have run, and some been successful, some not. It's as we're seeing now with the current governor's race. I mean, it's a commitment to travel all around the state and do all that kind of stuff. But after 48 years, it's an unfair question, I guess. But what are you going to miss the most?
A number of things. The people. You develop a lot of friendships, and some, even though they're not in the legislature, you're close to, and also the give and take, and sometimes the fights that occur. You kind of don't want to see them happen, but when they do, it's something. It's kind of part of it.
And some things are worth fighting for, right? I mean, whether you win or you lose, I mean, in the legislative fight, some things are worth fighting for. Yeah. It is still despite all the technology, despite the consultants, social media, all that kind of stuff.
And staff.
But it's still a relationship business, right? I mean, politics and governing is still about developing relationships with the people that you work, even those that you don't necessarily agree with, right?
Right.
I think people miss that. I mean, I don't mean that in a way that like they long for it. I mean, people miss the fact that the majority of stuff that we do, we have to work with other people, regardless of whether urban, suburban, rural, or they're Republican, Democrat, or independent, whatever they might be. To get stuff accomplished, you have to work with people.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's a key element that people often don't realize about the process.
That's both sides, and it doesn't matter whether they only have 6 members and you have 27. You still have to try to work with them, and hopefully they reciprocate.
Yeah, so let's I want to talk about that for a second, because I think it's a really important thing. Because you mentioned that we just came out of redistricting,
Mm-hmm.
which had its own controversies around it, but Senate decorum is really important to you.
It is.
It's really important to me. Speak
Because-
on that.
Well, that's the only way that you can guarantee that people can be heard and their ideas expressed. And what had happened during redistricting, the minority leader had come to me and asked if she had a list of the 6 Democrats, if they could be called on. And I said, I'll go ahead and call on them and let them, they have 20 minutes, and each of them abided by the 20-minute rule, with the exception of Senator Oliver, who I stopped her when she exceeded 20 minutes and told her I'd give her a few minutes, brief time to close, and then she continued to go on and on. So cut her off, and that's when, it caused a reaction on their side.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, and I think what people may not realize about, there's a famous Senator Douglas Henry line of, if we're not going to follow the script, we're going to have to go by the rules, right? There is a little bit to a process and decorum that we have. There is a little bit of scripting that occurs. Like, for example, the minority leader came to you and said, "Hey, look, we realize what the votes are on this. We want to have and the Senate rule. I'm chairman of the Rules Committee. The Senate rules allow for a member to speak, uninterrupted for 20 minutes. That's the rule."
Yeah.
And so, they gave, as we often do, they gave a heads up as to here's what's we expect to happen. But then, when they got to the end, their last speaker chose to sort of exceed the rules, even though you gave them some flexibility. And then when you said, I'm going to enforce the rule, all of a sudden that's when kind of the behavior. Yeah. But that kind of decorum of members being able to speak their mind, speak to the issue without the other side necessarily interrupting or protesting is a really important part of how the Senate operates.
Functions, right.
Yeah. I mean, and outside of the disruption that we saw with that a month or so ago, have there been other instances where you saw anything like that?
Not in my career. Never with the members of the Senate or the members of the House, but
I mean, certainly people in the gallery have done things, and outside they have done things, but within the body of the
itself, no, not at all.
Yeah, and I argue that some of that is due to performance politics and people being able to use social media and wanting to put stuff on social media to advocate for whatever it is that they're advocating for.
Yeah. And in some cases, it really makes them look not professional at all. I mean, they are able to do things. I don't know how they do it with a film and
they edit it to kind of tell a narrative that maybe really
didn't occur.
Yeah. Well, we are going to miss you as a body.
Well, thank you.
And as
I'll miss you all.
Well, and I'm going to miss you personally, obviously, partly because I got to find somebody else to help pay the rent because of the.
I thought Jimmy was coming.
Well, supposedly the future. I don't want to get the cart before the horse. He's still got to win his election, so let's assume that Jimmy Matlock's going to win, and he's going to be, but it won't be the same. But things are, one thing about the legislature that I've often talked about on this show or with others is that the legislature is constantly changing. It's
Yeah.
constantly evolving, particularly in the House. People who
Yes.
talk about term limits,
Yeah.
Speaker, there is, from my class when I came in 2004, I think I don't think anybody's left from my
Really?
class. They've all, and then when I came to the Senate in 2006, you've got Jack
Rusty.
Johnson. Well, Rusty was already there.
Yeah,
But
Rusty
from
was
my
there.
class, it's just Jack and I.
Jack and
Everybody
you?
else is new.
Is
And
gone.
so for people who think that, that term limits are the solution, they really you have to look at the body. It really
Right.
does change a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And but we do need foundational figures like you. You've been a foundational figure, from your historical experience, both in the House and Senate, is really important to the body. And it's a part of our state. You are a big part now of our state's history. You didn't give as much credit to yourself as you could have. You've been through any number of monumental changes in the state of Tennessee. Obviously, you and I are both finance kind of people, and so we're going to focus in on, that we have balanced budgets, that we have AAA bond rating, that kind of stuff. But you've been through prison reform.
Right.
You've been through education reform.
A couple of times.
A couple of, yeah, we kind of said that at the same time, didn't we? I mean, a couple of times. You've seen us do children's services any number of times to try and get that right. You've served with, I was just trying to count in my head, is it maybe 7 governors now?
Seven.
7 governors. You've seen the body politics.
2 other speakers, though.
Only 2 speakers. Yeah, the speakers don't change very much in the Senate. So you've really seen the landscape of Tennessee from a perspective that nobody else really has.
Yeah.
And so I want to, on behalf of all the 7.2 million Tennesseans, some of them who vote for us and some of them who don't, I want to say thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
And you've had an amazing run. Tennessee's a better state than it was when you first started because you've stayed committed to Tennessee.
Well, thank you.
And that's really important.
It's not one person that makes the Senate or the House, but it's really the conglomeration of all those individuals and the skills that they bring and the ability that they bring.
It's true. That's true. But, an orchestra is made up of a lot of different people playing a lot of different instruments, but it takes the conductor to make music beautiful. And you've been that conductor. So
well, thank
you for your service. Yeah. Hey, folks, this has been another episode of Tennessee Today. I've been speaking with Randy McNally, the Lieutenant Governor and Speaker of the Senate of the great state of Tennessee. It's been great. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Enjoyed it.